Coming up on the Pete Sousa Show, we are in the wake of the Tom Brady roast, and it's something like I'd never seen before. We had to talk to some people about that. We talked to my brother Mike about that. We talked to Zach about the Kendrick Lamar Drake beef, and we talked to Darby Brown about all things Darby Brown, including Darby went to see Caitlin Clark's debut. It was the Indiana Fever against the Dallas Wings, a preseason game. Obviously, if you don't know who Darby is, by the way, she's a Central Texas sports reporting legend, and you're about to get to know her if you don't know about her. And then Darby and I also talk about covering this offseason, quite an active one for Baylor, Baylor basketball. And yeah, that's it. We're doing it a little early this week. We taped a little early this week because I'm going to Oklahoma City to do the Big 12 softball tournament, first 3 rounds. Not the championship, always a bridesmaid, but I'll take what I can get. Doing it for ESPN, ESPN Plus. I'm stoked. You should be too. Let's get to it. All right, Zach, quickly before we get to the meat of the show, why are Drake and Kendrick Lamar, why is there a beef?
There's a lot to it that goes back years and years and years. To me, I think the most latest iteration was like a sneak diss on the song with J. Cole and Drake. What was it? First person shooter that started this whole iteration of it, but it's something that's been going on since like back.
So J. Cole and Drake were doing a song together. Drake snuck something in about Kendrick Lamar.
Both Drake and J. Cole.
J. Cole, though, and I know this just from my amateur following this status, very wisely bowed out.
I found out today, according to the source, it's because a Schoolboy Q, who's really good friends with Kendrick, told him, "Hey, you probably want to step out."
Told
J. Cole, hey, yeah.
Why is, because I've been hearing about this, why is there building resentment from the rap community towards Drake?
I don't know how qualified I am to speak for the whole rap community.
You're the most qualified person in this room, dude.
I think that a lot of people just feel like he switches styles a lot to whatever's popular. It's about what's selling, and that's kind of what he kind of makes his style appeal to. Also, he's, at least Kendrick called him out for, going and stealing like other cities' culture and style just to benefit him too. Oh, hey, Atlanta music's hot right now. I'm going to go find as many Atlanta artists I can do. Like that, it seems to be a lot of that, of where either pretending he's something he's not, or just kind of like culture vulturing himself in a way.
Culture vulture?
Yeah.
Wow. I like that.
Thank you.
Culture vulture.
Never heard that before?
No, but I haven't heard about this beef at all. Whose side are you on?
Oh, Kendrick for sure.
Why? Everybody's on Kendrick's side.
Yeah. I think it's just because, beef aside, at least for me, is at the end of the day, he's just the better musician. So even if it's, I was telling my wife this the other night because trying to get her to care about this was kind of. Yeah, but the thing that I told her is even if you take out like the fact that they're going back and forth at one another, or like whatever the digs are, just song wise, Kendrick just sounds better. He's a better musician all the way around. So,
Tom Brady Roast, Mike Sousa coming up. All right, so listen. I wanted to call you because you and I had a really good conversation this morning about the Tom Brady roast, and you had a couple very interesting takes. I want to ask you this question before we get started with the roast in itself. If you could see, who would you want to see get roasted next? If you could pick somebody.
Oh my God, a young Margot Kidder. No, I don't. Oh, fuck. Who could I think of? I mean, Jesus, Peter.
All right, so you don't have an answer.
I mean, I could have one. Let me think. All right, Tom Brady handled himself well. Let's think.
Okay.
Tom Brady, I thought, did a tremendous job. Topical, bring the audience. I mean, Lord, don't you think? Look, Dwayne Johnson, right? Wouldn't
He wouldn't do it, but that's a great call.
Yeah, like The Rock. Who would fill it up? Who would be humble enough to have that done? I don't know.
I think it's important to realize, and I talked to Darby Brown about this. You don't know who she is, but you will know who she is.
I was gonna say, what did Darby say?
Darby is kind of a celebrity, but you'll learn about her later. So
hold on a second. Can we hold on? Darby's a celebrity that I don't know anything about. Like, you get to I mean, what is going on? What did Darby do?
So Darby is a sports anchor here in Central Texas.
Okay.
And I brought her up here. You love her. She is just real cool.
Local celebrity.
Totally local celebrity. Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
So
okay,
Darby's
good.
the best.
Thank
Anyways, her and I were talking about it. Her brother and her dad both played basketball, like high-level basketball, and she gets athletes. And we were talking about the fact that, the reason a guy like Tom Brady can handle that is because of all the ball breaking that goes on in the locker room. So I think The Rock did play football at Miami. That's a good point. Maybe he could do it.
Yeah. What about who the most obscure, interesting roast would be a roast of Jay Billis. Could you imagine? Because he'd want to answer everything back, but he couldn't. That's not fair. Well, hold on now. Now, wait a second. I mean, of all the oddballs, that would be interesting. Jay Billis.
I think that would be pretty good. What about, I was going to say, what about Dad? But no, okay. We won't go there.
What about Mom? Have you located Mom yet?
No, but we'll deal with that afterwards. All right, so I don't want to keep you too long, but I want you to give me some of your thoughts about the roast. You had mentioned that you felt like there were two possibly seismic events that happened last night within this roast. Can you explain?
Sure. Now, look, we talked this morning, and I was 6 or 7 cups of coffee deep, and now it's 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and a lot has happened. So I think that we're talking about the return of, the raw comedy. I mean, To me, that's what I saw last night.
Yes.
That, it could be the moment where we say, okay, look, the other side of the argument has been completely missed, undervalued, and we needed to be alerted, or as you like to say, woke, to all the surroundings, which I totally agree. However, can we get back to having fun and comedy again? Because that was phenomenal last night. I laughed out loud for all the wrong reasons, and it felt great.
Did you see anything, and I know you're not trolling social media, but as earlier in the day when we talked, I hadn't seen anything yet that had been derogatory or anybody being, no social media sheriff saying, hey, that was off color, you shouldn't do that.
I have literally seen nothing, but I have not looked at any sort of social media, so I am still yet to be tainted by what may or may not be out there.
I haven't seen anything.
I just thought it was fantastic. I thought Nikki Glaser was tremendous. I thought Rob Gronkowski got crushed. I felt bad for him, actually. It was just such a great environment. I mean, the place was packed. Kim Kardashian, right? Is this the turning point for Kim Kardashian? Have we officially been put on notice that she has jumped the shark? I can only imagine that her media team, her publicists right now, all day long, they were like, well, holy we have got, something's got to happen here. What's the narrative coming from the Kardashian camp? Do we have that? Because there better be something coming out.
Did you think it was too long?
I didn't watch the whole thing from start to finish. I actually watched the last half hour or 45 minutes this morning, and frankly,
this guy's like the president of a company, and he's waking up watching a roast. I don't understand how that works. I don't know an executive that watches as much TV as you do that isn't working in the media arena?
Because I'm just my priorities are completely missed right now. Because I had to get up and watch that. That one guy, Andrew, with the crazy haircut, I was just blown away with how good he was. But yeah, what can I tell you? I was punch drunk on comedy last night, so I woke up this morning and finished it. I mean, that's
who was the best performer out of people that you haven't mentioned yet? You mentioned kind of like the big hitters. I know you, and you can't say Belichick, but who grabbed you and you were like, I didn't see that coming.
I mean, I always know Nikki Glaser is fantastic, but she was a home run, a grand slam. And boy, I'm going to be remiss here. The one, the gentle person who had glasses on, was black. I think is a woman, but is dressed as a man. I don't, know how to what that person's name was. They were phenomenal and hilarious. Hailing from Boston. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, it doesn't matter because we're going to cut this part out.
Oh, thank God. I mean, whatever that person's name is. The best joke of the night was when Nikki Glaser said that Jeff Ross's pronouns should be them and it. I mean, does it get better than that?
No, you mentioned that to me this morning, and I thought it was hilarious.
Oh, that and it or whatever. But just cut this out. I mean, what do I say? I can't remember the person's name. And they didn't say what that person identified as, so I don't know.
Fair enough. No, I think you handled it well. And look, I think that adds to the element you're talking about. Like, hey, we can all go forward and have fun. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter, what you identify as.
Honestly, I thought it was such a great environment. It was hilarious. It was completely uncomfortable to hear some of the things. It was comedy.
Did anybody? And I know this is asking you this question. Did you feel like anybody went too far?
I mean, the repeated stuff about Giselle, I thought, oh God, that's got to be painful. I felt bad for Tom Brady a couple times, but beyond that, I don't know, not really.
Do you think he regrets it?
No.
Yeah.
Oh my God, no. There's no way. He's and his at the end, he was great. Watching him at the end, he was fantastic. There's no way he regrets it. It's getting tremendous feedback from what I saw. And again, I haven't been deep into social media today, so just the headlines. It's out there. I did listen to Pat McAfee for about 20 minutes when I got on the treadmill at lunch. So he led off the show with how great it was.
Yeah, I thought it was phenomenal. All right, anything else, Mike? That was a great little segment. I was curious. I wanted to get some of your feedback on the record, some of your thoughts.
I mean, frankly, nothing on the roast, but I pull into my house and my wife, she parks in one spot for a year and a half, and then moves to another spot just out of nowhere. All of a sudden, just changes it up, and now she's moved to another spot. And I don't know, it's just insane. I mean, it drives me nuts. She's almost it's she, I don't know. Don't get married, Pete. Just continue to stay, live the life that you're living. The poor man's Hugh Hefner or whatever it is. I'm telling you, brother, it's wild. Okay.
Mike, by the way, it's those sound like problems of plenty. You got sounds like you got a pretty big driveway. I've been there before. It is pretty big.
All right. I mean, I guess so. But, look, I'm in the moment. What do you want me to say? I'm in the moment. You can see this. It's almost like the car's sideways.
All right, Mike. Well, that was very good. I appreciate your thoughts.
Well, thank you very much. And, as always, it was great to interact with Mike briefly and his,
one of the video stores he owned, Michael, was called The Leopard.
Oh, really? What was he selling there? What kind of videos was he renting?
He says it has something to do with the nickname of a local team. But
the Leopards? Okay. All right. Well, look, best of luck with the rest of your show. It was a pleasure just to have a minute or two here with you.
All right, brother. Thanks, Mikey. All right, so Darby Brown, the best name in sports television.
Oh, wow.
I told you that a long time ago. Now, your middle name is Joe.
Yep.
And an old friend of ours used to work at our news station, KWTX, said you should have just gone with Joe Brown.
Yeah, Darby Joe or Darby Joe Brown. And, I like my middle name. It's on my social media. It does have a flow, but, I'm not Southern, so I feel like it's a little fake to be going Darby Joe, So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So from Arizona, your first job was in West Texas, and now you're here in Central Texas, and you've built quite a following here. And lucky for us, we are in Big 12 country. There's a whole lot to do. You come from a basketball background. Did you? So your brother Trent, Southern Illinois. You just graduated, right?
Right. Yep.
Your dad played at Michigan State and then Western Michigan, and he was a sharpshooter. They're both really good shooters. Your sister play sports at all?
She played soccer, but had some injuries that kind of prevented her from continuing on. But yeah, both my dad, my brother, my uncles both also played basketball in college. So
where did they play?
His brothers. One was at Siena, and one was at
Siena. How about that?
Siena. Yeah. So they played in a tournament once. I remember. And my other uncle went to a small Division III school somewhere in the Midwest. So I don't want to get it wrong. I think it's Hillsdale. But yeah.
Siena. That's up towards like my neck of the woods, like New York, or New England area. So did you play hoops?
I did. I definitely played.
Did you play in high school?
No. So I played up until high school.
So what happened?
I got involved in dance, and it just took over. So I was a big-time dancer, which is funny because, I've always loved sports, but I did kind of let dance. It just became something I was super passionate about. So I ended up in high school dancing at all the basketball games, dancing at the football games, telling my teammates what was going on, all of that stuff. So that was kind of my role in high school. I also will say I played in middle school, and I played against this girl who ended up being our high school's starting point guard, and she went to the WNBA. So Sydney Weiss was her name. She went at Oregon State. And
so you were better than her.
I know. I would have seen the bench a lot is what I'm trying to tell you. Yeah.
What kind of player were you?
I was a decent shooter, decent ball handler, definitely a guard. And I was pretty good. I think I should have stuck with it because I didn't really hit a growth spurt until later.
Here's my issue with you not playing basketball.
Yeah.
All right. It's in your blood.
Yeah.
It's who you are.
I know.
Right?
I know. And I did love it. I mean, my mom played in college too. I forgot about her.
She did?
Yeah, she played at DePauw, which is a Division III school.
Yeah. With the W.
DePauw with a W. Yeah. So, no, definitely I loved basketball, but I don't know. There was just something about dance that got me, and it really confused my whole family, including all my relatives, because the athletic, sports interest goes to truly everyone in my family. So, yeah, I was the only dancer probably in the whole family.
Is your dad's family, are you from Michigan?
From Michigan, yep. And then my mom's family as well. So they both grew up in small town Michigan, went to rival high schools, met in 7th grade at a basketball game. Yeah. So, just the cute little love story of a small town.
No, you have an awesome family. That's why I asked. I had a chance to meet with your parents when we did the pregame show.
Yes.
For the Big 12 championship.
Yeah.
Back when Baylor was doing a little bit better in football.
That
seems like that was December of 2021.
Yeah, I know.
And like how things have totally changed.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy. That was an awesome season, and it's been tough since then, I would say.
All right, we'll talk a little bit about Baylor, but I want to talk to you. Recently you were in Arlington for the Dallas Wings, their first preseason game. They played the Indiana Fever. Caitlin Clark, obviously, Mania. For you, the first thing I wanted to ask you, that's why I was asking about your family and basketball.
Yeah.
As a woman who's been so close to the sport of basketball, how has it been for you to see the sport really, and this is no knock on players that came before Caitlin Clark, but the sport has elevated.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like you said, I did grow up a big basketball person. I've always followed the sport. And really, I will say this. When I came to Baylor here to cover Baylor, and came to Waco, and Kim Mulkey, it was her teams and the whole fandom around all of that. I was really impressed with what was going on here in Waco and just how the town really backed the women's basketball team. And to be honest, I was a little surprised by it because that's just not the norm in most of the country. So that was cool to see.
I was surprised too.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool to see that, wow, they really care about this team and these girls and the whole thing. And so that kind of shifted my perspective a little bit with women's basketball and just that how it really can, these towns really rally around these college teams and things like that. So it definitely people have been interested in it, and it exists, and there's a big following in certain parts of the country. Example, Waco, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
But to see what Caitlin has done for the whole country really is just mind-blowing. Like, it is so crazy. And, I covered the Final Four in Dallas last year when she played in against Kim Mulkey's LSU team. And it was not anywhere close to what it is now. I mean, seeing her at that stage, there was definitely some buzz about her, and everyone was impressed with what type of player she was. But then to see in Arlington the crowd that she drew for a WNBA preseason game to sell out, I believe it's the only sellout the Wings have ever had for a regular game, playoff game, doesn't matter, only sellout. And I mean, the amount of Iowa jerseys and people that stayed after to get her autographs, and just all of it was amazing. And it is, I mean, then, people are there watching that game, and it was a good, entertaining game. And so then you think, well, maybe those people will come back for when Caitlin's not around. And I do think she has done some of that. She's elevated everybody around her and, the whole sport.
What was the situation like with credentialed media?
Yeah.
Was it tough to get a credential? Was there, because when I saw you were covering it, I was like, wow, that's interesting. Like, was it tough to get a credential?
Yeah. I mean, I just kind of gave a shot at it and said, hey, I'm going to try, because Nalissa Smith, a former Baylor player, is her new teammate, and there was a former Baylor player that plays for the Wings, so there's a little bit of a local flair, and then also just who isn't interested in the storyline of Caitlin Clark. So I was like, I'll just try it out, and I was surprised that I got approved, honestly, because the demand was definitely pretty high. I think that you could tell that was the most media they've ever had cover one of those games, and they did their best. It was just a learning, there was a lot of learning on the fly going on, because I just don't think that's ever been like that at one of those games. So, moments before my live shot, someone was trying to tell me you can't be there, stuff like that. And so it was, it was funny, but it was, it's great. I mean, it's amazing to see, and especially on a night where the Mavs are playing in a big-time playoff game, and, some of those Dallas stations had some of their key people covering that WNBA game. That was definitely very cool.
What was the experience like for you to be in the you kind of described it, but the electricity in the arena, I would imagine you could feel it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, pregame, just watching her come out on the floor and realizing that was her first, warm-up shots as a pro, and you could kind of just see her taking it all in, and she kind of was struggling too at the beginning with her warm-ups, and then she kind of was just trying to be like, okay, it's okay. So seeing that process
was everybody, was it already packed for warm-ups?
Yeah, people were already there for warm-ups, and the cameras, I mean, there were so many cameras on just everything she did for the whole pregame. So that was kind of, she's probably used to that, obviously, but it definitely, to me, was just like, man, there's so much pressure on this one girl. And the fans that showed up, I mean, people were there at 4:30 waiting to get in, and the game didn't start till 7, and the game starts and she hits her first shot of the night, and it just blew up, and it was so obvious everyone there was rooting for Caitlin, and some people were rooting for the Dallas Wings, and that was it. It was it was definitely, it was electric.
What has happened, in your opinion, over that? Because you make a great point. When they played LSU and lost the championship last year, I mean, she was obviously on the map, and she was somebody we were talking about. But there's been a quantum leap to this year. What, in your opinion, has led to that meteoric rise?
I think she just, night in, night out, continued to put out a performance that had people talking, and it just kept talking. People just, the buzz kept going. She kept shattering the records. I mean, I think that was a big deal, her shattering that all-time scoring record in the NCAA for men's and women's. I mean, that's historic. You can't argue with that. And so I think it was just a slow build throughout this whole final run for her of just, what's she going to do next, and watching the shots she's taking, and just the whole thing just continued to build to where it just blew up. And I mean, it's fun. I mean, it's so fun. I, on the side, this, but I coach fitness classes, and, I have some of these older ladies talking to me about Caitlin Clark all season long, and and it's younger people and people my brother's age. Everybody is so interested in her and her game, and that's really, it's just her. It's her game.
Do you think that she can keep this role going? I mean, because it's like you mentioned, the pressure's got to be out of control. Mm-hmm. I was interested too, by the way, sidebar. It seems like her teammates are loving her.
Yeah.
And that's a little different, right? Like certain environments, she comes in like a Johnny come lately, like hasn't maybe earned her keep at the WNBA level. That does not seem like it's an issue at all now.
No, I mean, I think we heard some of the other players, the older players, things
Yeah.
like that kind of have their doubts about her game. And some of that to me came off a little bit off-putting of, why wouldn't you be rooting for anything but for her to be great? And
Yeah.
so I think she's run into some of that. But no, her teammates seem to be really loving her game and playing with her. I mean, one of them is Nalissa Smith, who played
Yeah.
at Baylor. And, she's someone that was a big star here. She's kind of used to being a big star, and now she has a huge star playing right next to her. But, I mean, Caitlin Clark scored 21. She had 20. There's room for her to play, and then there could win, So I think her teammates are loving it. And her demeanor just, in the post-game interviews, she just is so humble. She really is. And so, how she stayed that humble, I don't know, because it is just like she's the biggest thing around. But, yeah, she somehow managed to kind of still care about her teammates and her, the assists. That matters to her as well, the way she plays that in her game. So I think all of that is definitely leading to her teammates being welcoming.
I feel like her teammates and other players, too, they're I don't want to say the modern day player. They're just more aware of how she can enhance their life and their career. Not like there's a less like competitive nature to some of these players, but they see like, look, she comes, like Nalissa Smith said, like we're going to be playing in front of packed crowds now. We played like in front of 6 people last year. I mean, there is something to that. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with it. Like, all you had to do was see the crowd she brought night one. And, I mean, imagine what it's going to be for a regular game. Imagine what it's going to be if they make the playoffs. I mean, it's just – it's there right now. And to your point about will she be able to keep it up, I think, if she can continue to play, which I saw no signs of her being – bothered by the physicality of the WNBA, all those things people sort of picked on. I think she's already rocking, and it's just going to continue. So I think, how could it not? I mean, I do think there's other things that you hope kind of go along with it, which is just people talking about the WNBA more, talking about her games, when they're going to be on. All of that stuff starts to play into it. But I feel like if her game continues to impress, like I think the fans are going to continue to show up. Yeah.
I want to stick with basketball. Baylor's had a crazy offseason, and you've been literally at ground zero for this. I've had a lot of people who are not even in the basketball world mention to me how fun it was following you on Twitter during basically it was I pictured you and I know that Chad wasn't with you. You were actually by yourself. But I almost felt like it was a buddy cop movie. You and Chad Vothry and our other sports person at KWTX just staked out outside his house, like eating bad food and just like drinking caffeine, like with binoculars on. But for people who don't know, walk us through exactly what that was like. And because I don't know. I mean, I don't even know. I'm around sports all the time.
Yeah.
What is it like for a person in your shoes when you see these? Because a guy like Scott Drew, there's always rumors, right? Like there was Louisville, and that got kind of put out pretty quickly, that fire. But even me, I start to get kind of stressed. I'm like, wait, this is a legitimate rumor now. So how are we going to handle this? What happens to you when you see that, okay, this is a legitimate rumor of Scott Drew going to Kentucky? How do you spring into action?
Yeah, well, first of all, when you hear Kentucky, you know it's going to be a legitimate concern because it's Kentucky, and there's only so many jobs that would even rival anything like that. And so, I think one of the first things that happened was our sister station in Lexington reached out to us to send video of Scott Drew so that they could be prepared to break some sort of news surrounding.
So they were like,
job.
"Hey, we're hearing this." Like,
yes.
Okay.
And so that was when that happened. I was like, "All right, maybe I should pay more attention to this. This kind of seems to be, rolling here." And then I think someone out of Lexington had reported that he was interviewing for the job, and so I kind of trusted that person as well. And so it started to kind of come from that area first, which made sense that they would probably be talking a little bit more than around here. Everyone's trying not to talk about it or something. And so, so there was coming from that, and then it kind of just continued, and I started trying to, ask some people who might tell me things or whatever. And so reaching out.
Is that hard for you to do?
It is hard because
you're a pretty normal, cool person.
Yeah,
so it's like that's always, but you have to do that.
You have
it's part
to ask.
of your job.
Right.
You have to. I mean, the people that are the best in the business, and there's also a way too, and I guess this goes back to, you are a relatable person. these people probably don't mind talking to you that much about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's people that, have your trust, and, if you say you're not going to run with anything, they believe you, and so you've built some of that. So, but I will say nobody really knew around here, because it was kind of, they kind of knew it was happening, but they didn't know what he was going to do about it. That was the biggest question. Yeah. But I knew enough that, okay, he was in the mix with this job. There was interviews going on. I figured that out. And then he posts the Mi Casita photo on Twitter. Yeah. And Twitter just or X, whatever. Yeah, Twitter blows up. And so everyone is curious about what it means and all these things. And first of all, people started saying this photo is old. And so I was like, why would he post an old photo? So I got on the phone and called the restaurant at Mi Casita and said, hey, was he here? Did Scott Drew have lunch here today? And they said yes. And so I think I was one of the only ones that, confirmed that he was actually at the restaurant. But I still was like, what does that mean? Okay, he had lunch with this booster, kind of a weird move if you're going to leave, but not impossible. Yeah. And, all day long, people have been tracking this plane that belonged to a Kentucky booster. And apparently it had taken off in the morning from Temple and went to Lexington, and people thought...
Not Waco, Temple.
Right, Temple, yeah. And people thought Scott was on that plane, and that's when he put out that photo.
Pretty much everybody.
Yeah, everybody. Everybody thought he was on that plane.
It was reported by guys who I follow and respect that Scott Drew was on his way to Lexington.
Right. Yeah, so that's why he posts the photo at Mi Casita to try to kind of throw people off, at least... I think, it's you can kind of draw that conclusion. And so, yeah, he posts the photo, the plane goes. Then we find out, we kind of have people staying with this plane, tracking it. It wasn't just me. That we have a team of people behind it. And so people are tracking this plane. And you can only track it when it's in the air. Well, we find out it's back in the air. And so we kind of just take a gamble on where it's going to land, because it went to Temple. We're thinking it's going to go back to Temple. So I just kind of get in the car and drive down towards Temple and film whoever might be coming off the plane, and it turns out it was his family.
Could you tell it was his family right away?
Yeah.
Just from being around them?
Just from being around him, his wife and definitely his older daughter. I didn't really notice.
But at this point in time now, you think that he's possibly on that plane as well? Oh, no, he's not.
Well, we know he's not, but I thought maybe it was going to be someone from Kentucky, or with Kentucky logos coming off the plane. We're not totally sure. So but when it was his family, I was like, oh, that is an interesting look here. And so then we kind of just went on the air with that, saying, hey, this is what we saw. And I decided to blur out their faces because I didn't know the age of the son, and there's some legal stuff there, and it just felt a little TMZ even for me, which it was. And it was, but it is what you have to do. I felt like, and put it out there, I felt like his Mi Casita photo wasn't really telling the full story as to what was going on, so we ran with it. And then, the next morning he made his decision that he was going to stay, and so clearly there was some conversations in their house over that night about what to do after their little day trip to Lexington, and so that was it.
How was that night for you, like, as far as what are you doing to monitor the situation? Are you not sleeping? Are you trying to sleep, like getting a little bit of time?
Well, we were, not a lot of sleep for sure. We were off the air pretty late, and then posting some stuff, and then, you wake up kind of early and try to check everything and, ask some people. And so really it was not a lot of sleep. And then luckily the decision did come, later that morning, and then we could kind of put the story to bed by the end of that night. But
was there any piece of information, and you don't have to tell me who, obviously, but was there did you get something that you thought might be true and you were like, whoa, like you have to look into it and you're like, oh man, that's kind of way off?
Well, I just think the him being in Waco piece, but trying to throw everybody off, but with the family going to Lexington, I think that was the part that, that was the piece that was not out there that we had to put out there. So I don't know if it was really anything I heard. I think it was mostly just like, what's he going to do after that? And so there was some, people drawing all sorts of conclusions about whatever that meant and things like that. So it was mostly just filtering through what was actually true and what wasn't true, and trying to put out what was true, even though people were saying whatever, so it's just kind of a lot of chaos when you're dealing with a story like that. But, you're relieved when it's done, because it's following it like every second.
Yeah, I'm sure it's exhausting. How often do you get tips or information that you don't report and can't report because you can't corroborate it?
Yeah, a decent amount. I think I as long as it's nothing that's going to harm people or affect people or whatever, I have no problem on just listening to someone say something. And if they say, hey, don't, mention this, then fair. Because you care about people's relationships and, your relationship with the team and, how they respect you. And, I think coming from, again, kind of to tie it back to my family, coming from a family that, there's that saying of being in the arena and, if you're not in the arena, you don't understand what it's like. Yeah. I always have that perspective of like, even though I wasn't a player, my brother just finished his career. My dad has definitely had a career and coached a little bit as well. So there's a sympathy level there and an understanding level there of just kind of like, hey, nothing is worth, ruining someone's day over this or whatever it is.
Do you use that as if I were, the reason I'm saying it, because if I were you, I would. And sometimes I do. I mean, I was supposed to play in college, but I didn't. But, like, if I can find a way to get that in there to, like, talk to somebody about that, I'm like, oh, I got a scholarship to Richmond, but I couldn't play. Do you ever use that?
I think so. I think
I remember I was doing the Baylor Seton Hall game, and I was walking with Seton Hall's with ESPN's producer right after Trent.
Yeah.
And they had beaten Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
You were like delirious.
Yeah, it was like the ending of that game was chaotic. It was crazy. Yeah. No, definitely. I like people to know kind of where I come from. And I think, Baylor, a lot of the assistants are now gone, which is another, but a lot of those people do know kind of about my brother and about my family and that part of me. And I think whether people know it or not, I just kind of wanted to show through my work and just like, that I understand, obviously at a level, I understand sports greatly. And then I understand just kind of like these characters that I'm around all the time, like from a different perspective than some people.
What makes them tick?
Yeah, what makes them tick and what it's like to be someone in their family or, just the lifestyle that they live and kind of the pressure that they can be under and, just all of that. I feel like unless you kind of have been around that, which I was really raised in that, it is, and honestly, my mom was too. My grandpas were coaches. So it just goes, it just goes the whole family. That's so it really is. And one of my, prime memories, like my cousin played football at North Carolina when I was in 4th grade. And I was at a game and I was a little kid and, someone was ripping on him, not playing well.
Who's your cousin?
Stuff. His name was Matt Baker. He played a little bit in the NFL, but
was he a quarterback?
He was a quarterback.
I've heard of him for sure.
Oh, really? Yeah. So, anyways, so that was one of the things that got me into sports. But I will never forget just hearing people in the stands just rip on my cousin and I was like, aren't these people supposed to be fans of his team? Like, it was confusing to me as a kid. And now, obviously, I get it, but I still think.
But it still is confusing.
Yeah, it still is confusing. Like, why do people like to hate on their favorite team so much? Why do people like to hate on the quarterback of their team that is the only person that could make them win? Like, why are you hating on us?
And you're going to do something like you're going to emote this energy that could actually hurt them.
Right,
and hurt your team.
And so all of that, and I think there's reporters that do similar things to not to say I should care about a team, but you should care about people you get to know. And, you have a level of, you should do a job that's not going to harm anybody or, be respectful. And I think sometimes people who have just been in positions of just talking about everything and never living any of that, I think there's sometimes like a loss there as far as how they do their job versus. So I hope it shows in my work. Long story short, it's kind of where I was going.
So something you told me today, I got a couple more things and I'll let you get out of here. We were talking about you coming up here and we were talking about the offseason and I was like, I'm curious to see the process was with Scott Drew. And you told me that Caleb Lohner, who is a reserve like power forward on Baylor's team, transferred from BYU, basketball player, he's going to play football at Utah?
Right. Yeah.
And so that's another thing. You said you'd heard this. But share with me what you shared with me on the phone. I was like, my mind was blown.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much I could share, but I guess I could kind of share without names. But I had heard that he kind of was playing football a little bit this summer with someone who is a professional quarterback. And they were like, hey.
A very good professional
very good professional quarterback. Yeah. And they were like, hey, you're really good at this. Like, you should play. And, I mean, if you've seen Caleb, he does – look like he could play tight end. And so, I think that's kind of what he's going to try to go do. But yeah, I mean, it came from, he kind of was just playing for fun and looked pretty good. I saw, this is public, he was working out with a couple of Midway high schoolers at Midway's, which is a local Waco high school. If you're not, but yeah, he was working out at their indoor facility, running routes with their quarterback and one of their guys. So I think he's been kind of working at it, and so he got a shot obviously at Utah, and that's where he's going to go. And in his post, he did say there could be an opportunity for him kind of be on the court also, which would be, probably, obviously we all know that could happen. But yeah, it's pretty funny. And now Baylor will play Utah, week 2 of the football season, and maybe we'll see Caleb.
Oh, that's right. I didn't even think about that schedule.
Yeah. So, but who's not going to like him is BYU people, because, man, he
Not
started there,
and
then he came here, and now he's going to Utah. They're not going to be fans of him. So yeah.
what this offseason, it's been bananas. How have you, processed this whole and I'm talking about Baylor's basketball, this whole entire offseason, assistant coaches, players, now you're keeping up with the portal, Scott Drew rumors, Caleb Boner's playing college football, what?
Yeah, you feel for Scott Drew, man. It is, or anyone who's involved in college. Like I always say, it's just it's a crazy time to be around college athletics, because it really is. It feels like the Wild West. NIL's been around for a little bit, but it's still just so wild. The transfer portal keeps getting crazier with just the amount of people that go in, and then that whole process. So man, they just do not have an off season at all. It is just such a different world. So for me, I guess it's kind of similar in just that you got to kind of keep up with who's going here, what's going on, who's, all these things. All the filling of their coaching staff was interesting to see, and I feel like he's kind of got that locked down now. But yeah, it's been crazy. The Scott Drew piece was a big story, but then it was like, okay, he's staying, but now look at all this, Alvin Brooks goes to Kentucky. Yeah. It just continues. So
what happened with that? Do you know anything about that? What the connection was?
I don't really know the full connection. I know he had spent some time there younger on his earlier side of his career, and had some connections to the area. I don't really know his relationship with Mark Pope, but I will tell you, I saw Coach Brooks the day that, the news broke about Coach Drew staying, and I've gotten to know Coach Brooks pretty well, and I saw him, and we were, he was so relieved that Scott was staying and the whole thing. And, and he was complimenting me on how I'd covered the story, because he was like, we were following along with you. We didn't know what was going on, whatever. And then, it's so funny how things work. I mean, it's like,
but it just shows it's day to day.
Couple weeks later, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that was not planned at all, I think, especially in that moment when he just thought, oh, my job is saved here in Waco, and then, so I don't know. I'm happy for him, though. It feels like it was, to be the sole associate head coach there at Kentucky. It's kind of a job you, I guess, can't turn down.
No, you
but
can't. That's a lot of money, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
A ridiculous amount. All right, grade the Tom Brady roast.
I was just talking to my mom about this. I think my favorites were Peyton Manning. Bill Belichick roasting him was unbelievable television. That was hilarious. And then Nikki Glaser, she was really funny too. So those are my favorite. I don't know a full grade, but it was a little long. The jokes definitely got overdone, but there was definitely some good stuff in there. Whoever came up with that whole idea to even have
Tom
that.
Brady,
I don't know why.
Why would he want to do that?
Someone said it's like, I think part of the roast, someone said life was just too good to you. You just wanted people to just make fun of you for 3 hours.
Well, I guess, and this, what we're talking about, it goes back to athletes and your family. It's ball busting is a huge part of it. But that's a whole nother level.
Yeah. I mean, it was a little shocking, and I think some people on stage were like, can we laugh at these jokes or not?
No, I mean, they're talking about, they're all jokes, and it's like, because, growing up, I wasn't even alive really for this, but you watch the old Johnny Carson stuff, or the roasting was a huge part of comedic society. Right. And they would just crush everybody, but it was classic and it was awesome, but it kind of, we got away from it, and I mean, if that's any indication, I would imagine there'll be more.
Yeah, probably. I mean, he had 3 hours of just one after another coming on that stage to just, pick him apart. I don't know why he did it, but it was entertaining for parts of it.
What happened to the Suns?
Oh,
you're a Phoenix native. I'm still pissed about the National League Championship Series last year.
I know. Yeah. I hate to say it. I love my sons and I always will, but I feel like they just kind of missed their opportunity a while ago. I think when they were younger and they were, playing with guys that people really didn't care about as much, individual guys, they had it and they took it to the Western Conference Finals and then the actual finals. And, I don't know. I think that was their time. I feel like since then they've tried to almost overcorrect and it's messed with stuff. Like you can't get rid of all of your young role players and then just bring in these superstars and they aren't meshing. I mean, it's just not working. And so it's strange to see the amount of talent that they have that they can't just put it all together. But I don't know. I don't know how you fix it, but something needs to be fixed because they really tried to overdo it and it's backfired in my opinion. Yeah.
All right, what's the social media? Darby Joe Brown?
Darby Joe Brown on just about everything.
All
so,
right.
yeah.
You've said it all?
Thanks,
Thank
Pete.
you. Honestly, thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
This was very fun.
Yeah. Thanks so much. I mean, you've made it this far. I got to ask you what you're still doing and what you're doing with your life. But thank you so much for watching, listening, and whatever you're doing. This is the Rogue Media Sports Network. Right, Zach?
Yes, sir.
That's it, baby. All right, we'll see you next week.
We are Rogue Media Sports.